everyone, and that was my cat, Crowley. We both welcome you to our channel, AJ is AJ, and I'm your host, AJ, and he is my co-host, Crowley. Currently, he's attempting to get on my shoulders, so as he repositions, I will quickly explain what this video is about today. Some of you may have seen my recent video about, well, I say recent, it was a few months ago, about Planetary Life, a simulation game about evolution and creation, and it's quite well done. It's quite well done. It was certainly in the early stages when I first tried it. So, what is this video about then? Well, the Planetary Life update is here, and I am so excited to tell you all that right now is a fantastic time to try this life and evolution simulator for yourself. The most recent round of updates has smoothed game performance, fixed the timing of early gameplay, and most importantly, improved the tutorial state. And now that Crowley has finally gotten a perch upon my shoulders, yes, hello, good boy. Oh, yes, very good boy. You cannot hold my hand while I'm doing this. Anyway, on this channel, I break down demos and early stages of games to deep dive into the game from a tutorial perspective. My first attempt at Planetary Life was actually pretty rough, and you can see what went wrong by checking that video out at the end of this one. The tutorial stage was very fast, and most of the info melded together, or simply wasn't informative enough to help me understand what it was trying to convey. But now the pacing and value of the information taught is much more appropriate as you make your journey through it. The update added several stages of possible upgrades and evolutions, particularly focusing on planet evolution and more altars to upgrade your planet with. It might seem as though this would add to the problems I initially had with the tutorial. However, the developer Pixel instead went the best route and used it as an opportunity to fix a lot of the issues. They used the greater depth of evolution lines to successfully pace the early portion of the tutorial so that it is now more intuitive to know what stage you should be at. My first attempt, I was really frustrated, mainly with myself because I thought that the growth of my creatures and planet seemed much slower than where the tutorial indicated that I should be at. Now, I progress in stages at a less hurried but more efficient pace, and the next tutorial hint matches up with the effort that I've put in, and is an appropriate next step forward. There's clearly a long-term design process here that takes natural player focus patterns into mind. So what's changed then? Let's get into it. What actually changed to make this the perfect time to try this demo? Well, the first thing is that the start screen is already better. It just is. It's cleaner, there isn't an overload of colors and information, the explanation of the different modes is better, you don't feel overwhelmed but excited about the different options, and then immediately told, oh no, you can't do those in the demo. Instead, you're guided visually to read the little welcome blurb, and then dive into the demo's available mode. No more immediate overwhelming options that you then spend time to read, only to learn you're locked out of it. This cleans up the demo and makes it so much easier to dive into. I genuinely felt refreshed testing it now. Some of it is, of course, coming down to the familiarity that I have with it, but even then, I was sighing before getting into my testing. That isn't a good sign, but I did not do that this time. Okay, so then what about the rest of the game? Has it really changed all that much? Well, yes and no. I know, a very midline answer, but I'll explain. The same core mechanics remain the same, and there is a lot more useful info given when reading tutorial tips, or even just the upgrade menu. Speaking of the upgrade menu, let's take a moment to highlight how it has changed, and for the better as well. As you can see, it is much more filled out. You can not only see the abilities now in advance, you can actually unlock and use them in the demo. I'm not too thrilled that a lot of the bigger upgrades are just the altars and artifacts, that even with testing, they don't really seem to make that much of a noticeable change. This, though, I think comes down once again to there being a lack of clarity on how a lot of the planet stats, i.e., oxygen, atmosphere, dust, etc., actually affect the evolution and survival of your creations, be them plant or animal. But getting to play around with them, particularly the mutation genetic, is very, very interesting. And I think I did see some greater speed and evolution of the species within its circle of influence, but it was still minimal. The menu itself is clean, readable at a glance, and the pattern of progression feels natural, and again, well paced to match accordingly with your experience in the game. One of the other places and aspects of this game where it's much more noticeable is the merging aspect. Now, my first time round, I really did like this little feature of the game, being able to see what evolutions would win out when I would merge two very divergent creatures. However, there was never really any clear indication of what was going to happen, and there wasn't any versatility or variation on what the outcome could be. This time, though, there is a change. You're able to tell what, at least somewhat within the realm, of where you're going to be able to utilize this creature. I apologize. Hello, Crowley. Yes, do you have something you want to see about creature evolution and merging? That you liked the fish. Well, that's fascinating. Do you want to come up here and tell the people? Come here. Come here. Would you like to tell the people? Do you like the fish? Yes, very much. Okay. Well, unfortunately, a lot of the more fish and, other whale or mammalian life that you could potentially find in the ocean, it's a lot harder to get them than you'd think. Sure, all these creatures start out in the ocean. However, when the mutagens start, they are looking to be able to go to land. So, if you want to actually have creatures that are going to survive and become an ecosystem within the sea biomes, you are going to need to watch your creatures closely and make sure that you're adding in fins and other water and aquatic apparatus. Now, when you merge, it is much more fun. I was actually able to see changes and regressions, or even progressions, when I would merge creatures within a similar energy range of each other. And when I say I was, quote, actually able, what I really mean is, I may have gone a little crazy with it this time. Cue the montage. You can see the genetic path and features of the original creatures that your new creations have merged from. You can tell what things work well together, especially when creatures with a stronger single feature do not carry that over into their merge. You can tell what was a horrible choice, and maybe even a few crimes against nature. Also, did I say I went a little crazy with this feature? Yeah, that may have been an understatement. Cue montage 2. As you can see, these are no longer goofy little guys. These are no longer the beings with eyes and mouths that we started with. These are goofy medium-sized men. That wording is of course a joke. These creatures actually have no discernible genders. And I do actually think that's a bit of a shame. Okay, whoa, stop. No one is demanding that right now, or, even in general. But it would be a massive undertaking for Pixel, who is already doing so much and such an incredible job. This is not to add to their workload, but just to say that I would one day love to see a point where sexual dimorphism is possible in these creatures. It's an incredible part of animal diversity, and a really gorgeous part, in my opinion, of the products of evolutionary changes. It's a part of nature's art, and it would add two significant elements of play. It would perhaps have to be in a harder or more realistic mode of play, but I think that it would be such fun to see examples of evolution happening with cross-species with higher stakes. Right now, hybrids happen naturally and constantly. You're even creating them yourself by merging. So what if you could take the mutation process and the mutation alter, or the merging process and the mutation alter, or even just wait and hope to have two creatures of the same species that can actually reproduce? This could lead to greater evolutions being unlocked for different types of reproduction. Right now, we pretty much have almost entirely asexual reproduction, with some different types of reproduction being presented to us with different stages for the creatures. Imagine this scenario, though. You've been working on a gorgeous planet for several hours, and you really want to try your hand at a dragon-like creature. You've got some cool avian creatures and some snake-like creatures. How fun would it be to try and merge them to find a great starting hybrid that you can then breed from to create an incredible, majestic creature? You may have many tries and failures from experiments, but when you get it, that click will feel incredible. The point of these creation simulators is often to have exactly moments like that. It brings out even more creativity and perhaps competition to this small but growing community. It sounds pretty fun to me, and I'd love to hear in the comments some of the creatures you'd be excited to try and create on your own planets. Most of the tutorial phase does take place in the beginning phases. I'd say in the first 30 minutes to maybe 45, depending on your playstyle and what exactly you're trying to accomplish. However, this then begins the mid-phase of our game, where you're no longer working towards that next tutorial goal necessarily. It's now a farther out goal for you. Now you're working on maintaining population, you're working on maintaining your food sources, and you're also making sure that you're not losing a lot of water. Evaporation happens extremely quickly, at least as it is right now. I'm not sure exactly how all of these stats fit together, like dust and oxygen and atmosphere. A lot of it seems to be based off of common knowledge, which isn't a bad thing. However, how these stats interact with each other in the game setting is not clear. This leads to an enormous problem. The planet becomes very dry very quickly, and this causes ecological disaster across your planet rapidly. If you don't catch this quickly, you will suddenly lose entire communities of creatures that you've already begun working on upgrading, or even just your fodder for those creatures that you may have turned into absolute carnivores. Now, why is this a problem? Because, unfortunately, it is extremely hard to recover from this on your own. One of the fantastic things about both nature and planetary life is that both of them have ecological systems that actually, or environmental systems, that allow them to repopulate and rebuild after devastation, provided that the current environmental processes are in place to support the next stage of evolution from the life that is left. We have a lot of examples of this happening, particularly in my gameplay. There was times where I would have almost 2,000 population, not just of creatures and plants, but of creatures or plants. Lots of times, suddenly I would have an incredible burst in creature population, followed by an incredible lull in plant population, which would then, of course, naturally level out the vegetarian and omnivore population, which would then, of course, cause the cyclical nature of the carnivore population to fall. This is fantastic because it all is writing itself. I'll talk about that a little bit more because I'm getting off onto a tangent here. However, this is where you need to start paying attention. We are in the mid-game now. Somewhere between the first hour or second hour mark, you will run into a bit of a natural plateau in your gameplay, depending on how efficient you are and how much you understand. This is when you have a lot of creatures evolved and your carnivores are trying to see if they can out-eat herbivores who are trying to eat all of your plants. If you do things right, they just need to be left alone for just a bit to sort out territory and even out populations where everything can naturally sustain itself. Use this time to work on terraforming. And if you do things wrong, well, you may just end up taking care of the problem yourself in about 5 seconds, depending on what your speed setting is. The ebb and flow of the game is quite good. In fact, these random meteors or even your own comets, they are a part of the gameplay that keeps it interesting and keeps it changing and keeps your population actually in check. Sometimes you'll notice that you have rampant extinctions happening due to one of many factors, like I mentioned, with the humidity or with the humidity drying out, as it were. Sometimes your planet is just drying up and you have to play a game of chicken with meteors to drop more water. You'll always find that you drop into a natural rhythm. Check your planet, terraform as needed, evolve your plants, evolve your creatures, merge or move them. There are, of course, several natural threats to this cycle, helping to shake up your gameplay, sometimes even literally. Earthquakes, meteors, volcanic eruptions, and more are all natural disasters that can crash a perfectly balanced ecosystem, or even destroy a creature that you've spent lots of time on. But this is its own cycle of the game, and it keeps the gameplay interesting. Sometimes these natural disasters even help to naturally restore order when a certain species has gotten out of control, or the population of creatures far exceeds the sustainability of plant life. This is one of the highlights of the game to me. The ecosystem works very well. It's thought out, the player's intuition is a big factor for things, and is forgiving when you make a mistake. The constantly working system that is already in place can help you correct course. It's also very much like our own natural world. The shape of our own ecologies has changed hundreds of times since the world first had life, and each of those changes, even mass extinction events, has made way for greater progress. This same natural course is happening on an accelerated timeline in this world. Is it as extreme as major global warming, or perhaps a sudden ice age? No, but we aren't there yet in this game's development process. But something tells me that Pixel has already considered adding this, and the structure and framework for it is already there. So, all of this is to tell you that if you like Sims, life sims, and creation sims in particular, that aren't too dollhouse style or too hands-off, then this is the game for you. It gives the right amount of balance between the two, allowing your inputs to shape the world, but not allowing the world to be singularly defined by you. No playthrough or planet will be the same, no matter how perfectly you recreate your steps. Go check out the Planetary Life Demo out now on Steam and from the link below in the description. If you like this video, please take a second to show that with a thumbs up button. If you're interested in hearing more content like this, please take a second to subscribe. And if you're really interested in tutorials and early gameplay, please drop a comment with a game that you'd like me to check out. Maybe there's a tutorial phase that you've really struggled through, but can't put your finger on why. I can't put your finger on it either, but I'll certainly try my hand at it and see what questions we can answer along the way. Until next time, y'all. Bye!